We have Nan Baker and Andrew Meyer. And what we're going to do is ask each candidate to give a 2-minute opening statement. That will be followed by questions from the audience. We do ask that no questions be asked directly from the audience. Our format is writing the questions down. We do have volunteers in the room who have note cards and pencils. If you'd like to write a question down, feel free to raise your hand. What happens then is the questions are brought up. They're given to a screening committee. We have 3 lovely ladies right here who will look at the questions and make sure they're screened so there's no duplicity. Sometimes your question may not get asked in the form that you submitted it. What could happen is you might have several similar questions. So if your question isn't asked, it's maybe because we ran out of time or somebody else had a pretty similar question. We do also ask you to refrain from asking what we would call any scurrilous questions. The usual joke is, are you still beating your wife? Or, did you kick your dog last week? We ask people not to ask those kind of questions. Let's stick with the issues, please. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to answer a question. The questions may be directed to one or both candidates, and the other candidate may answer the question that is directed to the other candidate. No candidate may speak after the time allotted. The time limits will be enforced. I know I was described as the moderator, but I really do not run what is going on in this room. There are ladies sitting in the front here. They're the timekeepers. When you're starting to run out of time, they're going to hold up cards. These are the people who really run the room. I urge you, please listen to them. So, then after we're done with the question and answers, each candidate is going to have 2 minutes to make closing remarks. And I'll be here basically to help remind you of where we're at. What I would like to do is begin and ask the candidate immediately to my left to begin with introductions and the 2-minute statement, Ms. Baker.
Do I need to turn this on? Can all of you hear me? Great. Thank you. Well, first of all, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's candidate forum. We have made needed historic changes in this General Assembly. It is not overstating that Ohio was in crisis January 2011. Our first order of business was to balance a budget that had an $8 billion budget deficit. Raising taxes was not an option to fill the budget gap. Loss of population and losing 2 congressional seats is a reality of Ohio's decline. Many families in Ohio are having a difficult time balancing their own budget and worry for their children's future. During our door-to-door campaign, I have talked to thousands of our neighbors in District 16, and they are pleased that our focus has been to strengthen Ohio's economy. Difficult decisions needed to be made to bring Ohio back to prosperity. Our mayors and superintendents in District 16 have understood the need to work together toward the common cause. We are hard-working Ohioans and believe that Ohio is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. I am pleased to say, after balancing our devastating budget, Standard & Poor's and Moody's credit agency has upgraded Ohio's credit rating from a negative watch to a stable credit rating. This sends a message across the country that Ohio is open for business. Although we still have a way to go, 120,000 jobs have been created in Ohio since January 2011, which makes us the #1 job creator in the Midwest and 4th across the country, and we were 48th. As chair of the Economic and Small Business Development Committee, we have heard numerous proposals and created legislation that promotes a business-friendly environment to retain, create, and bring jobs to Ohio. I look forward to sharing those with you tonight, and as I continue to say, it's all about jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer?
My name is Andrew Meyer, and I'm running because I know I can make a significant positive contribution to the good governance of our state and our region. I haven't held elective office before myself, and I haven't always liked what I've seen with those who have held office of either side all too often. It's hyper-partisan right now, and it seems as though most politicians care more about what their political parties and political bosses are telling them to do rather than what their constituents are saying. That hyper-partisanship has certainly permeated state government recently, where the governor has pushed a wide variety of very extreme bills through the legislature instead of working to get our economy moving and protecting the things that our state and particularly our region do well. Now, my opponent is a very nice person, but I fundamentally disagree with her approach. Our region needs a legislator who will not be afraid to challenge his own party when it's in the wrong, when it's crossed the line, or when it's not working with the opposing side, as has happened all too frequently right now in Columbus. I've taken great pride in my professional life in the achievements I've had in working with the opposing side and working out comprehensive, innovative, and collaborative agreements as opposed to bickering or taking things to trial. I've also taken pride in speaking out for reform in the Democratic Party, in pushing for change in the wake of the county corruption scandal, even when sometimes it's not always popular among some elements and there has been fallout at times. Now, I'm going to be an active legislator working on the issues that matter to our state and to our region. I'm going to be active in reaching across the aisle, and I'm never going to be afraid to challenge my own party when it's in the wrong.
Thank you. I'll ask this first question. Mr. Meyer, with the Affordable Health Care Act now law, will you support Ohio's obligations as a participant under this act so that all citizens, and especially seniors, receive full benefits?
Yes, above all, it's just a matter of constitutional law. We're obligated to follow the directives of the federal government under this matter, and it's just a matter of primacy, and it would be illegal for us to resist that in any way, first and foremost.
Thank you. Ms. Baker?
Well, I think that most of our governors are waiting to see what the presidential election plays out. I think they are very anxious about more mandates that will have to be covered. I know for just the expanded Medicaid, it'll be almost $1 billion more that we're going to have to try and find in those dollars to cover it. Now that may mean loss of other services that we give Ohioans in order to make up the difference. We really need to look very hard at what it is government is there to do, and what we don't want is more and more government in our lives that take decisions away from us that we would be better off having for ourselves. There are certainly issues that we need to overcome with health care. There certainly is reform, but it doesn't have to be a total takeover by government. And we will see in this next presidential election how that all plays out.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, as our state representative, what actions would you take to create jobs in Ohio?
Well, I think we need to be more strategic in our approach. I think we need to take a more regional perspective, look at what different regions are doing well in, where their strengths lie, where the growth trends of the new economy are. And if you look at things like the Bureau of Labor Statistics and other reports, we're very fortunate in having fields like biomedical research and technology and clean and green jobs, which are all trending upward in the new economy. We're already strong in those things right now. The more we look to creatively incentivize those, the more we have an opportunity of becoming a Silicon Valley of these high-growth fields, which can really just reap benefit for our entire economy. That's certainly going to be priority number one for me when it comes to state legislature.
Thank you. And Ms. Baker?
The one thing we need to know is that government can't create jobs. All we can do is create an environment for jobs. And that's what we have done at the Ohio House. We have created a business-friendly environment, and we still have a ways to go. We have eliminated the estate tax, the death tax that most people know it by. We rolled back the personal income tax, so you have more in your paycheck than you did 5 years ago. And we balanced the budget without raising taxes. giving a stable credit rating instead of a negative watch is certainly something that we all know is good for Ohio. 122,000 jobs coming to Ohio is about a fourth of the way of what we've lost. We've lost over 400,000 jobs. So we are definitely on the right track. We need to keep moving in that direction. And I'll have to say, I have not seen an administration as aggressive as this one has. If there's any company out there thinking about moving, we're there at the table talking to them about it. If there's any company that wants to expand and reaches out to us, we are there to make sure that they get the services or at least the knowledge to know what can help them. And if any company outside of this state is looking to Ohio, we are there to make sure that we're at the table putting together a package that is reasonable. This is an aggressive administration. We certainly understand that we can't create the jobs. We can only create the environment that entices those jobs to come, be retained, and expand.
Thank you, Ms. Baker. And Ms. Baker, this question is for you. Could you discuss your vote for the budget that cut local government fund by 50%, cut some West Shore school districts by 70% of state funding, and eliminated the estate tax, which some consider to be helpful to the cities in the West Shore?
Okay, well it's good that we have questions that sometimes aren't as knowledgeable, because the schools did not get cut 70%. Rocky River and Westlake, both in the governor's first assessment of the budget, and there wasn't anything that was a sacred cow on the table when it came to trying to balance an $8 billion budget deficit. We looked at everything. But by the time that the Ohio House got a chance to take a look at what was proposed by the governor, I put an amendment on the floor, working with our superintendent here in Westlake and with all our superintendents here in District 16, to make sure that what was fair was what we were going to propose. And my amendment was working with our superintendents and they understanding that this was a budget that we needed to balance. No more than a 20% cut across the state of Ohio would any school be given. And that was passed. Had to work with my colleagues, but that was passed. It went to the Senate, and they actually put all the state aid funding back. So I know there were a couple other questions to that. The schools, just so we have the record straight, did lose the tangible personal property tax reimbursement. But that was a phase out as it was, and it seemed that that was fair as with everyone, not just cities and schools, but hospitals, nursing homes, any agency out there that was need of state dollars. Everyone, as all of us have in our own lives, balanced our budgets, whether we're small businesses or whether we're just households. And that's what we asked of our cities, schools, hospitals, nursing homes, anyone out there that is on a state funding program.
Thank you. And Mr. Meyer, you have an opportunity if you want to answer this question or offer comments.
Yeah, and as Nan said, there were a few questions in there, and hopefully we'll be able to readdress some of them as time goes on. But on the school funding part, certainly none of the cuts wound up happening. Obviously, whether that's going to be the case or not in the future is certainly the point that we need to look at in the future. Also, the vote was there as far as voting for the drastic cuts. I believe it was 79% and 81% for Westlake and Rocky River, respectively. I could have those mixed up, but so on the school funding, I'm sure we'll talk about that more as this progresses, because that is so critical to the district, and so many people choose to live here, move here, stay here because of the fantastic public schools that we have. Certainly, so many people that I've talked to door to door, that's something on their minds immediately. But and I see the time is rapidly dwindling here, but on the budget matters, though, I do think there were a lot of problems with that budget. The cuts that we've had, I think, and Nan mentioned how aggressive the governor is. I think the problem is less aggressive and more extreme and not as thought out as it should be. We're going to see many communities are going to be seeing backdoor taxes because of the cuts to the local government funds. So many cities are going to have to raise their taxes in order to meet the difference there, and there were alternatives. there were things that we could have done better. One of the things that I talk about certainly is one of the tax credits that we have that's kind of superfluous. It doesn't do anything to grow jobs or grow the economy or cut or relieve people's tax burden. It does do things to help politicians raise money. There's a tax credit for, I will follow this up in a future question.
Thank you for your answer.